Chosen one, put your phone down right now. Not after you finish scrolling, not after you check one more notification, not after you reply to one more message that can wait. Close the other tabs, silence the background noise. Let the room stop buzzing for a moment, because this wasn't curiosity that pulled you here. It was a summons, and heaven does not compete with distractions for your attention. A divided mind becomes a crowded room, and a crowded room cannot hear a whisper. So breathe with me like you mean it. Inhale fully. Let the air fill the deepest part of your lungs. Hold it for 3 seconds and release slowly, as if you're letting go of every frantic thought clinging to your chest. Feel that subtle shift, that quiet opening inside you like a door unlocking from within. That is not just your body settling, that is spiritual permission being granted. That is you telling God without words, you can speak now, and listen. What is about to be revealed is not meant for everyone, it is meant for you, for the one who's been wrestling in silence, carrying questions you barely admit out loud. But before we go deeper, do one thing for me that's bigger than a button. Tap like and subscribe right now, not for vanity, not for numbers, but because the algorithm is a river and this message needs current. When you engage, you become part of the delivery system, a living signal that helps this reach the next chosen one, who is scrolling in exhaustion, praying for confirmation, begging for a sign. And here is the promise God is about to explain: the silence, the closed doors, the people who drifted the delays that made you doubt yourself, and why the next chapter is about to move faster than you can logically prepare for. The room has been cleared, chosen one, and when heaven clears a room, it is because something sacred is about to be placed in your hands. You didn't miss it, and you need to hear that with every fiber of your being, because the enemy's favorite lie is to make you think your story is behind schedule. You've asked it in the late night hours when the world is quiet and your thoughts feel loud. Did I miss it? Did I make the wrong choice? Is God still with me? And those questions do not make you weak. They make you human, but they cannot be your compass. The truth is, this season has been engineered for preparation, not punishment. What you called delay was God building capacity. What you called silence was God sharpening focus. What you called rejection was God positioning protection. Some doors closed because if they stayed open, you would have stayed small, and heaven did not design you for comfort in cages. Some people left because their chapter with you ended, and if they stayed, their limitations would have become your ceiling. You felt the distance grow, conversations dry up, the familiar energy fade, and you wondered what you did wrong, but nothing was wrong with you. You simply outgrew the environment that once fit like a childhood coat. God has been clearing the room not to isolate you for cruelty, but to remove interference. There are moments in destiny when God does not need your crowd, He needs your attention. There are moments when too many voices become fog, and fog is dangerous when you are on the edge of a new elevation. So He quieted what was noisy. He separated what was distracting. He trimmed what was draining so you could finally hear what comes next without static. That is why you have been feeling strange, almost like you're between worlds, not fully connected to the old, not yet standing in the new. That in-between space can feel like nothing is happening, but in the spirit realm it is everything aligning. You're not behind, you're not forgotten, you're not disqualified. You're being prepared, and preparation rarely feels like applause. It often feels like pressure, like stretching, like waiting without visible proof. Because God does some of His most serious work in hidden places. He develops roots before fruit depth, before display endurance, before expansion. So, if you've been wrestling, hear this: your wrestling is not evidence of failure. It is evidence that something inside you refuses to settle for surface life. You're being trained to carry what you prayed for without collapsing under it. You're being refined so your next season does not break you. And that is why the room had to be cleared, because interference can sabotage what is still forming. Interference can confuse discernment, distort timing, and dilute obedience. God is not playing with your future chosen one. He's not careless with your assignment. When he clears the room, it is because he is about to speak directions that require precision, and precision cannot be received in chaos. Now let that truth bridge you into the next reality, because once you accept that you didn't miss it, you begin to understand why God elevates in private before he elevates in public. Big shifts are not built under bright lights. They are forged in quiet places where motives are purified and foundations are tested. Heaven does not announce upgrades to critics, and it does not preview miracles to people who would misunderstand them. When God is about to move you, expand you, or relocate you into a new chapter, he does not hand out invitations to spectators. He does it privately, strategically, intentionally, because premature exposure gives misaligned people access to sabotage what is still forming. Not everyone who claps for you is safe. Not everyone who asks questions is curious for your good. Some people ask so they can measure you, some listen, so they can repeat you, some smile, so they can study your vulnerabilities. And God in his mercy blocks their access before the blessing becomes visible. That is why the silence has been sacred. It is not you being ignored, it is you being set apart. Hidden does not mean abandoned, hidden means protected. Seeds do not grow on the surface, they grow under pressure in darkness, and when they break through, they are strong enough to stand in sunlight. That is you right now. God has kept certain things quiet because your next level requires confidentiality of spirit. If you tell people too early, you invite opinions that are not anointed to guide you. If you announce what is still tender, you risk letting the wrong hands touch it. So God has been teaching you restraint, the kind of restraint that looks like patience, but is actually wisdom. He's been training you to move without explaining to obey, without performing to trust, without needing a crowd to validate your direction. And this is where many chosen ones get uncomfortable, because you want certainty. Before movement, you want confirmation before obedience. You want the whole map before you take the first step. But God often gives light for the next step, not the next 10. He teaches you to walk with him, not ahead of him. And walking with him means accepting that some seasons will be quiet by design. Your silence has been a shield. It has kept your heart from being contaminated by the wrong voices. It has protected your mind from counterfeit counsel. It has kept your spirit sensitive enough to recognize divine timing. And now, because the work has been done in private, the elevation can happen in public without you losing yourself to the noise. The private season built your spine. The hidden season strengthened your discernment. The quiet season trained your ear. That is why you're about to move into a new chapter fast, because once God finishes preparation, momentum comes like a river breaking through a dam. Doors open that you didn't knock on. Connections appear that you didn't chase. Opportunities recognize you before you introduce yourself. And when it happens, people will call it sudden, but you will know it was not sudden at all. It was built in the unseen, it was assembled in the silence, it was prepared in the clearing. So don't panic because you can't see everything yet. Don't mourn what God removed. Don't negotiate with what heaven already closed. Keep your focus clean, your heart steady, your mind quiet enough to receive instruction. Because what comes next will require you to move with clarity, not chaos, and with obedience, not explanation. And as you begin to accept that preparation has been happening in silence and elevation is being engineered in private, you must also confront a truth that stings before it strengthens. What you experienced as loss was often divine removal, not personal rejection. God has been removing people quietly from your life, not because they were evil, not because they were villains in your story, but because they were the wrong fit for the altitude you're stepping into. We romanticize people because of history, because of shared laughter, because of seasons survived together, but history does not equal destiny. Some people were assigned to help you survive the valley, to walk with you through grief, confusion rebuilding, but they were never commissioned to climb the mountain with you. Valley companions are not always mountain partners. The oxygen is different at higher levels. The perspective is different. The conversations change. The responsibilities shift. And when God sees that someone's mindset, energy, or limitations would suffocate you at the next altitude, He does not always announce the transition. He simply creates distance. Conversations fade. Invitations stop. The rhythm changes. And because you're human, you interpret it as rejection. You replay interactions. You ask yourself what you did wrong. You try to repair something heaven already closed. But here is the warning you need to take. Seriously, stop romanticizing what God shut down. Stop trying to resurrect what He buried for your protection. If you keep looking back, hoping old connections will return to their former closeness, you will miss the new tribe already being assembled ahead of you. Nostalgia is dangerous when it convinces you that comfort equals calling. Some relationships were scaffolding, necessary for construction but not part of the final building, and scaffolding must come down for the structure to stand on its own. God's removal is often mercy disguised as loss. He sees tensions you're too loyal to acknowledge. He sees jealousy you keep excusing. He sees ceilings forming around you in environments that once felt safe. And because your assignment requires expansion, He refuses to let you stay confined by familiarity. That is why the separation felt sudden. That is why it felt unfair. That is why you could not fully articulate what shifted, but you knew something had. You outgrew the room, and heaven will not shrink you to preserve someone else's comfort. Understand this deeply divine removal is not punishment, it is alignment. It is the reordering of proximity. It is heaven making sure that the voices around you match the vision within you. And if you cling to what has been released, you delay your own momentum. There is a tribe ahead of you that speaks your language without explanation, that understands your growth without feeling threatened by it, that celebrates your expansion instead of subtly resenting it. But you cannot see them clearly while staring at the door that closed behind you. Let it close. Let it stay closed. Trust that what was meant for a chapter served its purpose, and now the story is turning a page. As you allow those external removals to settle, you begin to notice that something even deeper has been happening inside you. Because God is not only removing people around you, He's stripping the old you from within you. There has been an internal detox taking place, and it has not been gentle. The need for approval that once drove your decisions has started to weaken. The addiction to being understood by everyone has started to loosen its grip. You used to over-explain yourself, trying to make sure no one misinterpreted your intentions, exhausting yourself defending your character to people committed to misunderstanding you. You tolerated subtle disrespect disguised as honesty because you thought patience meant endurance of everything. You bent yourself into shapes that did not fit your design, shrinking so others would not feel insecure, silencing yourself so rooms would remain comfortable. But something shifted. You no longer feel the urgency to justify your boundaries. You no longer feel panic when someone misreads you. You're less reactive. You can sit in silence without scrambling to fill it. You can be misunderstood and still sleep peacefully. That change has unsettled some people because they benefited from the old version of you. They benefited from your over-explaining. They benefited from your need to be liked. They benefited from your tolerance of behavior that should have been corrected. And now that you are changing, they feel exposed. But hear this clearly, you are not getting cold, you are getting clear. Clarity feels sharp to those who thrived in your confusion. Peace feels distant to those who fed off your chaos. Boundaries feel aggressive to those who are accustomed to unlimited access. Your growth exposes manipulation not because you're attacking anyone, but because light reveals what darkness concealed. When you stop performing, people who relied on your performance feel threatened. When you stop seeking validation, those who controlled you through approval lose leverage. That is not cruelty, that is evolution. And evolution is uncomfortable for anyone who hoped you would stay the same. God is stripping you internally so you can carry externally what He is about to release. You cannot step into a new season with an old mindset. You cannot receive expansion while clinging to insecurity. So He detoxed you from the inside. He let situations irritate you that you once ignored. He allowed your spirit to feel unsettled in rooms that used to feel familiar. He removed the taste for conversations that once entertained you, and you wondered if something was wrong with you. Nothing is wrong. Something is upgrading, and upgrades require uninstalling outdated software. You're not meant to be the same, you're meant to be refined. As that refinement takes root, it naturally leads to a new sensation you may have been questioning lately: the pull to leave. The pull to distance yourself from environments that once felt like home. The pull to disengage from conversations that drain more than they deposit. The pull to stop entertaining dynamics that no longer align with your spirit. And you have asked yourself whether you're being selfish, whether you're running, whether you're avoiding growth. But the truth is, this pull is ascension, not escape. You cannot rise while dragging anchors. You cannot fly while gripping weights. You cannot step into fullness while carrying people who refuse to grow. Ascension requires altitude, and altitude demands lighter baggage. Not everyone is meant to go with you. Some were meant to go near you. There is a difference. Going near you means proximity for a lessener season, a mutual exchange of growth. Going with you means alignment for the long journey. And confusing those roles creates unnecessary friction. Heaven creates tension when you try to force someone into a position they were never assigned. That awkwardness you feel in certain rooms is not imagination, it is misalignment. That fatigue after certain conversations is not weakness, it is your spirit signaling that you are overextended. And when you ignore those signals, friction increases. Plans stall, peace fades, clarity blurs. Not because God is punishing you, but because He is nudging you toward obedience. Stop forcing what heaven is creating friction to release. If it requires constant convincing, constant explaining, constant shrinking, it is not your next level. If it requires you to betray your inner voice to maintain comfort, it is not your alignment. Obedience will not always feel easy, but it will feel clean. It will feel steady even when it feels lonely. And loneliness is often temporary at new altitudes. God would rather you stand alone in clarity than surrounded in confusion. The pull to leave is not abandonment of others, it is honoring the shift within yourself. It is trusting that the same God who removed and refined will also replace and restore. You're not being called to arrogance, you're being called to obedience. And obedience sometimes looks like walking away quietly without burning bridges, without public announcements, without dramatic exits, simply because you recognize that your spirit has outgrown what your history is trying to hold on to. There is a new tribe forming, a new rhythm emerging, a new alignment assembling, and you will not meet it if you're still anchored to what was comfortable but limiting. Ascension feels like loss at first because it requires release, but release makes room, and room is necessary for what is coming next. So do not resist the pull. Do not label your growth as coldness. Do not confuse obedience with selfishness. You are rising, you are shedding, you are aligning, and heaven is not confused about your direction, even if you are still adjusting to it. And as you continue rising and releasing, something else begins to happen that you may not have consciously recognized, because growth does not only isolate you, it also connects you to the right frequency. And that is where the idea of a community signal becomes more than just a comment on a screen. When you type 77, it is not superstition, not ritual, not magic, it is alignment. It is you saying, I am awake, I recognize the shift. I refuse to sleep through this season. It is less about numbers and more about acknowledgement. You're not alone in this process. There are other chosen ones, scattered across cities, countries, timelines, all feeling the same pull, the same detachment, the same quiet restructuring. And when you signal alignment, you remind yourself that what feels isolating is actually initiatory. But alongside that awareness, you must confront the real burden you have been carrying, because the heaviness you felt was never about workload alone. It was expectations layered on your shoulders like invisible armor that slowly became suffocating. You were performing for approval you thought you needed. You were proving your worth to people who had already decided what they believed about you. You were managing perceptions, curating your behavior, adjusting your tone, shrinking your presence so no one would feel threatened. You were living as if validation was oxygen, and every time someone withheld it, you gasped. But God has been interrupting that cycle with a firm command that may not have come in audible words, but came in conviction enough. Put it down. Put down the need to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. Put down the performance that exhausts you. Put down the obsession with controlling how you are perceived. You cannot manage everyone's lens. You cannot tailor your destiny to suit every insecurity around you. And when you finally begin to obey that instruction, when you finally release that weight, you feel something shift that you have not felt in a long time: lightness. Not because your circumstances instantly changed, but because your posture did. You move from needing validation to living from already given worth. You stop asking, "Do they see me?" and start realizing God already does. That is the breakthrough shift. Worth is not something you earn by being agreeable, compliant, impressive, or constantly available. Worth was assigned to you before you accomplished anything, and once you internalize that, you become dangerous to systems that thrived on your insecurity. You stop negotiating your peace. You stop explaining boundaries. You stop auditioning for rooms that never intended to honor you. That internal liberation sets the stage for understanding the enemy's delay tactics, because make no mistake, when you begin stepping into clarity, resistance intensifies. The enemy rarely attacks your existence directly. He attacks your confidence. He plants doubts disguised as discernment. He whispers, "Are you sure?" in a tone that feels responsible. He stirs anxiety and calls it preparedness. He magnifies your past mistakes and calls it wisdom. His strategy is not to destroy you in one dramatic collapse. It is to keep you confused enough to stall. If he can keep you second-guessing, you will hesitate. If he can keep you analyzing every move through fear, you will delay yourself. And delay feels less dramatic than defeat, but over time it produces the same stagnation. He does not need you broken. He just needs you unsure. But here is the correction you must anchor in your spirit. You're not disqualified by your mistakes. You're not disqualified by waiting. You're not disqualified by the chapters that did not go as planned. What disqualifies people is refusal to grow, refusal to repent, refusal to heal. And you did not refuse. You stepped into the quiet. You faced your flaws. You acknowledged your patterns. You sat with discomfort instead of running from it. You rebuilt when it would have been easier to retreat. You strengthened when it would have been convenient to numb yourself. That was not stagnation. That was forging. The quiet season was not wasted time. It was construction. You were being reshaped in ways that cannot be measured by public applause. You were learning discipline. You were developing discernment. You were building endurance. And when you understand that the enemy's lies lose traction, doubt loses its authority when you recognize it as distortion. Anxiety loses its power when you identify it as intimidation. You begin to move not from fear of failure, but from alignment with purpose. And that alignment is what leads us into the coming vindication, because heaven does not leave obedience unrewarded. There is a moment in every chosen one's journey where private endurance becomes public confirmation. What you endured silently will not remain hidden forever. Doors you did not know existed are already being prepared. Conversations are being orchestrated in rooms you have never entered. Resources are being redirected in ways you cannot see yet. Lies spoken about you will unravel under the weight of their own inconsistency. People who doubted will witness evidence. But here is the condition that must not be overlooked. Stay in position. Stay aligned. Stay obedient. Vindication does not come to those who abandon their post in frustration. It comes to those who remain steady in obedience. Quietness is not weakness, it is discipline. Focus is not detachment, it is preparation. Trust is not passivity, it is partnership with God. And you must resist the temptation to force outcomes while you're in the in-between. The in-between space is sacred. It feels uncomfortable because the old has ended and the new has not fully manifested. But forcing something prematurely will only create artificial stability. God is not just opening doors, He is preparing you to sustain what walks through them. There are blessings that break people because they were never prepared internally for external expansion. That will not be your story if you stay aligned. Do not step out of the flow because impatience whispers that you are behind. Do not sabotage the process by grabbing at opportunities that do not carry peace. Flow feels steady even when it is slow, and when it accelerates, it will feel earned, not chaotic. As that acceleration approaches, another crucial layer must settle in your spirit boundaries without guilt and awareness, without obsession. You set boundaries recently, and part of you felt guilty for it. But if the boundary gave you peace, it was right. If releasing someone gave you clarity, it was right. If declining access restored your energy, it was right. Peace is a compass. Clarity is confirmation. Guilt often surfaces when you choose yourself after years of choosing everyone else. But guilt is not proof you did wrong. It is proof you're adjusting to new patterns. People will call you changed, and they are correct. Change is growth. Change is evidence that you refuse to stay the same. But your response to those accusations does not need to be defensive. Silence is powerful. Let results speak. Let peace validate you. Let consistency confirm you. Not every misunderstanding requires explanation. Not every accusation deserves rebuttal. And when it comes to enemies, yes, they exist. Sometimes they are spiritual forces, sometimes they are people with faces and names. But your assignment is not exposure or confrontation, it is alignment. God handles masks falling. God handles hidden agendas surfacing. God handles consequences unfolding. Your role is not to obsess over snakes. It is to walk carefully, to remain discerning, to avoid giving access where intuition says no. Obsession with enemies drains energy that should be invested in purpose. Awareness is wise, fixation is distracting, and the more you focus on building what God is placing in your hands, the less attention you have for who is watching from the sidelines. Your boundaries are not cruelty, they are stewardship. Your silence is not weakness, it is wisdom. Your growth is not betrayal, it is obedience. And as you continue forward, lighter from dropped expectations, clearer from internal detox, sharper from refined discernment, positioned for vindication and anchored in guilt-free boundaries, you begin to realize something profound. You're not merely surviving a season, you are transitioning into a new identity. The weight is gone. The fog is lifting. The voice inside you is stronger. The circle around you is smaller but healthier. The pull forward is undeniable, and none of it happened by accident. It was all orchestrated. It was all intentional. It was all preparation for a chapter that will require a version of you that no longer seeks approval, no longer fears delay, no longer tolerates misalignment, and no longer obsesses over opposition. That version of you is emerging now, and when it fully steps into the light, nothing will feel the same again. And now we arrive at the moment that ties everything together, the moment that feels subtle, but is actually seismic because your inner voice is the compass, and this is the pack your bag moment. That voice inside you is not paranoia. It is not fear masquerading as intuition. It is not overthinking dressed up as discernment. It is direction. It has been speaking consistently even when you try to drown it out with logic, opinions, or comfort. It has nudged you away from rooms that looked good on paper but felt heavy in your spirit. It has whispered when certain conversations crossed invisible lines. It has tugged at you when opportunities sparkled externally but lacked internal peace. And every time you ignored it, you felt regret later. Every time you silenced it because you did not want to seem dramatic or ungrateful or difficult, you eventually saw why it warned you. That pattern is not coincidence, it is evidence. Ignoring that voice leads to misalignment. Following it even when it is uncomfortable leads to alignment. Alignment does not always feel easy. Sometimes it feels like walking away from familiarity. Sometimes it feels like disappointing people who expected you to stay the same. Sometimes it feels like stepping into uncertainty without a guarantee of applause. But peace accompanies it. There is a steadiness that logic cannot fully explain. That is how you know the difference between fear and direction. Fear panics, direction steadies, fear rushes, direction anchors, and right now you're at a decision point. You can either keep seeking confirmation from people who do not carry the discernment to see what you see, or you can trust what God has already made clear inside you. Stop asking those who are not assigned to your next level whether you should step into it. Stop waiting for unanimous approval before you obey what you already know. Some people cannot confirm your move because they cannot see your destination. They're evaluating your future based on their present limitations. And if you allow their uncertainty to override your inner clarity, you will stall in a season that has already expired. This is the pack your bag moment. And understand, packing your bag is not just about physical relocation, though for some of you it may include that. It is about preparing emotionally, mentally, spiritually for movement. It is about loosening attachment to what is comfortable. It is about accepting that new rooms require new posture. When you pack a bag, you're signaling readiness. You're saying, I'm not clinging to this place as if it is permanent. I'm prepared for transition. Emotionally, that means releasing resentment, forgiving what hurt, and letting go of the need for closure from people who may never give it. Mentally, it means renewing your mindset, refusing to rehearse old narratives of failure or disqualification. Spiritually, it means sharpening your ear, increasing your prayer, deepening your trust. Because when new access opens, you must be ready to steward it. New rooms require confidence without arrogance. New tribes require authenticity without performance. New levels require humility without insecurity. Packing your bag means you are not shocked when the door opens. You are ready. And hear this clearly, the shift is already in motion. You may not see the full picture yet, but movement has begun. Conversations are aligning. Opportunities are repositioning. Circumstances are recalibrating. Just because you cannot see the entire bridge does not mean it isn't being built beneath your feet. Your isolation was intentional. Your waiting was not wasted. Your silence was strategic. Every lonely night, every closed door, every awkward goodbye, every season of confusion was carving space for something that fits who you are becoming. You were not forgotten. You were being refined. You were not overlooked. You were being prepared. And now the preparation is transitioning into manifestation. So here is your declaration moment. If this message resonates, if you feel that inner confirmation rising, type amen, not out of habit, not as ritual, but as agreement. Agreement that you will trust the compass inside you. Agreement that you will stop shrinking. Agreement that you will pack your bag and prepare for movement. Let it be a marker in this season that you chose alignment over fear. And as you close this chapter, carry both urgency and comfort. Urgency because your next chapter is calling and it will not wait for endless hesitation. Comfort because you're not stepping into it alone. Stay in position, stay in faith, stay aligned with what you know is true even when it challenges you. Your next level is not a distant dream, it is approaching, and you are moving soon.